Is Jared Goff the real deal? That is the question that NFL and ESPN analysts have been asking themselves since the day he was drafted. Now, why am I talking about Jared Goff? Well, that's because of the performance he put on Thursday night, opening night of the NFL season versus the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, did the Kansas City Chiefs lose that game or did Detroit win that game? And I'd say it was a little bit of both. Because, of course, a big reason the Chiefs lost, Chris Jones was holding out, he didn't get paid. Travis Kelce got hurt a couple days prior, and no receiver for the life of them, Kadarius Toney, could catch a football for Patrick Mahomes. But that's not to discredit Jared Goff and Detroit by any means. I mean, their defense went out, got a pick six for the team, and Jared Goff threw some pretty solid drives together, pushed his team down the field, and, was one of the key reasons that Detroit ended up upsetting Kansas City. Now, when the schedule came out a few months ago, I was as surprised as anybody to learn that Kansas City would be kicking off the NFL season versus Detroit. Because obviously, as we know, Detroit was not a playoff team last year. Sure, they ended their season on a hot streak, especially after they were able to beat, the Green Bay Packers in the final week. To kind of ruin the Aaron Rodgers goodbye ceremony that was. But, again, they finished 8-8, I'm pretty sure, 8-9. And they did not make the playoffs, weren't really close. So, the fact that the NFL schedule makers put them up against Kansas City on the first game of the season shocked me. But clearly, after watching the game, it is obvious that they know what they're doing. They knew that Detroit was going to be a team to fear this season. And oh boy, were they right. And someone who deserves a massive amount of credit for turning this mediocre franchise into a real football team would have to be Dan Campbell, who again, he took over, in 2021. So in 3 short seasons, he was able to change the franchise's history, really change who they are. Because now they're seen as a gritty team who's willing to bite off anybody's kneecaps, whereas before, they were kind of a joke of a franchise on the Cleveland Browns kind of level. I mean, they went 0-16. The first team to do that, by the way, and only one of 2 in all of NFL history. So this was a joke of a franchise, and then the owner makes the genius decision of hiring Dan Campbell as their head coach, and then they trade Matthew Stafford and acquire Jared Goff from the LA Rams. Now, it was believed at first when Goff was acquired that he would be a short rental, maybe there for 1 or 2 seasons before Detroit decides to draft maybe a rookie or pick up a really big free agent, which I doubt they were ever going to do. But Jared Goff has gone out and defied the odds because he's still with Detroit. And had he left Detroit, unwillingly or willingly, he'd probably be a perennial backup and, slowly wash out of the NFL. But that is not what happened. Dan Campbell and the front office decided to stick it out with Jared Goff. And now they're riding him into success. More than what was ever imagined. But Jared Goff wasn't always seen this way. As like a mediocre quarterback who could probably, you could stick a good offense around it and he'd be a solid QB. He wasn't always seen like that. He was once seen as a clear face of the franchise type of player. I mean, if we go to 2016, the Los Angeles Rams used the first overall pick in that draft to select Jared Goff. And there was a reason for that. I mean, he is one of the best quarterbacks to ever come out of Berkeley. Not the best, because of course, that award would have to go to Aaron Rodgers, who is by far the greatest QB that, Berkeley has ever produced. But right behind him could be arguably Jared Goff. I mean, Jared Goff's in his short time with Berkeley, he really made a name for himself. He was there from 2013 to 2015, but I would say that he really took the NFL by notice, and especially at the collegiate level, he took a really big step in 2014, his sophomore season, where his touchdowns jumped from 18 to 35. He only threw 7 interceptions, and his rating went to 147, and he almost nearly threw for 4,000 passing yards. He was fantastic for Cal in 2014, and his momentum would follow him as he did even better the following season, his junior season with Berkeley. His stats jumped up again as he'd throw for 43 touchdowns, a rate of 161, and his passing yards would nearly reach 5,000 for the season in a year where he played 13 games. So this guy was a stud coming out of college and is the reason that the LA Rams saw him as a potential franchise changer. And he did that in a sort, right? I mean, his time with LA can be described as, shaky, questionable. He had a lot of ups and a ton of downs with the franchise, but it's good to see him shining in his new home with Detroit. Look, the dude spent his first 5 years with the Los Angeles Rams, and since the video is about Jared Goff, I think it would be important to mention at least a little bit of that. Now, in his first season, he had a head coach known as Jeff Fisher. A lot of young NFL fans might not know him, but if you do, you know who Jeff Fisher is. Now, with Jeff Fisher, Jared Goff played about 7 games his rookie year, lost every single one of them. But in the summer of 2017, the LA Rams decided to bring in this new young head coach with ideas that had never been thought of. He saw the NFL in a completely different way, and that man was Sean McVay. He was able to turn this Rams team from 4-win team to an 11-win playoff team. He took Jared Goff to new heights and really elevated his career. And if I were Jared Goff, I would very much so give much of my success to Sean McVay because he turned him into what analysts thought that Jared Goff could become. Now, in 2017, 2018, I would say was the peak of Jared Goff's career. And in 2018, I would argue, is his best season with the Rams. It was the year they went to the Super Bowl. In 2018, Goff threw for, 32 touchdowns, had 4,688 passing yards, had a rating of 101, and, which is arguably his best season. He barely turned the ball over, threw less than 15 interceptions. Yes, that might be a high bar. Whatever. This man took the team to the Super Bowl. Well, arguably the defense took the team to the Super Bowl, along with fantastic coaching, and then it came. The most boring Super Bowl of NFL history, and probably the reason that Jared Goff's time would eventually end with the Los Angeles Rams. As although the team was magical all throughout the season, especially the offense, when the Super Bowl came around, Jared Goff kind of stunk it up. I mean, the Rams would go on to lose a Super Bowl 3-10, one of the most boring that I've ever watched personally. Brady would get another ring, and eventually Goff would be shipped off to Detroit. But now that he's with Detroit, now that he's with Motor City Dan, things can change. Especially if he wins a playoff game for Detroit. If he makes the playoffs with Detroit, that would be more than what Matthew Stafford was ever able to do. And, Matthew Stafford was able to win a Super Bowl with the Rams, but maybe Detroit gets one of their own, and that could go down as one of the most beneficial trades for both sides in NFL history, especially if Detroit is able to win a Super Bowl with Jared Goff. Here's to hoping. Now, do I think Jared Goff is the real deal, or is he just a fantastic system quarterback? Well, maybe he's been in 2 really good systems, but honestly, I would cut the man some slack. He was a top prospect for a reason. I'd call him the real deal, and he's going to prove it to the rest of y'all throughout the rest of this season. Anyway, that's about it for this video. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.